Eleanor Vance. Ellie picked up the phone, her heart fluttering. This was the call she had been waiting for 6 months. She had just returned from the salon, her platinum hair perfectly blown out, ready for an important conversation. "Hello, darling Brendan. I was just about to call you. Listen, it's time we finalize the wedding date. June is fast approaching, and I need to send out the invitations. I want to book the reception at the Grand Hotel. You know, the ballroom, enough space for 200 guests." On the other end of the line, there was a long silence. Not the silence of thought, but the silence of a secret just exposed. Then the clear, cold laughter of her daughter-in-law, Tiffany, chimed in. "Oh, Mommy, Ellie, we're already married." Ellie stood frozen in the living room next to the $8,000 leather sofa she had bought them. She held the phone with both hands as if it weighed 1,000 pounds. "What, Tiffany? What are you talking about?" Tiffany, whom Ellie had treated like her own daughter for 5 years, paying for her art course, dental expenses, and even buying her a car, continued in a cheerful, utterly cruel tone. "Oh, we held it yesterday afternoon. It was just an intimate ceremony, very small and private, Mommy Ellie. We only invited the people who were truly special." Those words felt like a bucket of ice water dumped directly onto Ellie's face. Truly special. She who had paid the rent for their Upper West Side apartment at $2,500 per month, for 5 years a total of $150,000. She who had drained her savings to pay off Brendan's $30,000 in student loan debt. She who drove 50 miles every weekend to bring food and stock their refrigerator when they were short on cash. She was not one of the truly special people. Ellie saw Brendan, her son, on the video screen. Brendan was sitting in the armchair she had bought, avoiding his mother's eyes. His silence was the most painful confirmation. She hung up. She didn't say another word, simply placing the phone on the table. The aquamarine dress, the $750 silk gown she had chosen to wear on her son's big day, lay useless in her closet, along with the illusion of being a part of his life. She remembered she had spent weeks designing a $10,000 to $1,000 wedding gift in savings bonds, called her sister Diana in California to brag, and cleaned her 3,500-square-foot house from top to bottom, hoping they would visit to celebrate. All of it collapsed in 1 second because of those 4 toxic words. Her hands trembling, Ellie opened the Instagram app that Tiffany always used to post her subsidized, luxurious life. She had blocked the girl, but she could view it through the account of Joyce, her nosy neighbor. The phone screen displayed the first photo, Tiffany radiant in an ivory white wedding dress. She stood next to her parents, looking very proud. The setting was the romantic garden of a small castle in Hudson Valley, New York. The second photo, Tiffany and Brendan raising champagne flutes, beaming with her siblings. The third photo. A close-up of the sparkling diamond wedding ring, a 3-carat diamond Ellie suspected Brendan didn't buy. The pain of exclusion instantly turned into a cold fury. She recognized that wedding dress. The dress Tiffany was wearing was the one she had asked Ellie to loan her $3,500 for last month, saying it was for urgent tuition for a special course. Ellie had sent the money without asking any further questions. Tuition, or the money to buy the wedding dress. Tuition, or the money for the Hudson Valley venue rental. She had seen everything she was not supposed to see. Tiffany's family, who never had to spend a dime on the young couple, were considered truly special. But she, the provider, the one who sacrificed, was treated like a stranger. That night, Ellie did not cry sad tears. They were tears of accumulated resentment, of years of silently enduring contempt. She had been the perfect mother, the easygoing mother-in-law, the quiet provider who never objected when they treated her as if she were invisible. She remembered the years after her husband Robert passed away. Robert left a modest inheritance, enough for her to live her final years in comfort. But she had spent $220,000 of that money on them. $220,000 US. Ellie went into the kitchen where she had prepared so many meals for her son and daughter-in-law. She took out an old ledger and began calculating with cruel, precise accuracy. She needed to see the specific number for her foolishness. Expense item, estimated cost units, USD. Rent, 5 years, X, $500 month, $150,000. Emergency credit card debt repayments, recurring, $25,000. Student loan repayment, Brendan, $30,000. Furniture purchases, sofa dining table bed, $1,000. Car payments on Brendan's behalf, $18,000. Emergency, wedding dress fund yesterday, $500. Total, $238, $500. Exported to spreadsheet, nearly $240,000. $240,000 had vanished money that should have been for her retirement and travel. In return, a declaration that she was not special enough to attend her son's wedding. The next morning, Ellie looked in the mirror. Her eyes were tired as usual, but there was a hardness she hadn't recognized, a resolve buried under years of compliance. She put on a smart business suit, a suit she hadn't worn since Robert's death. She drove 12 miles to the Chase Bank downtown. Mr. Clean, the branch manager waved her over. He had handled every automatic transfer to Brendan and Tiffany's account for the past 5 years. Good morning, Mrs. Vance. Do you need a transfer today? Ellie walked straight into his office. Mr. Clean, I need to cancel all automatic transfers to the accounts of Brendan Vance and Tiffany Dubois, all of them. I also need to block all access to my accounts, regardless of who the person is. I do not want anyone to be able to touch my money again. Mr. Clean was surprised. Mrs. Vance, are you sure these transfers have been as regular as clockwork for the past 5 years? Is something wrong? Ellie smiled a cold smile that didn't reach her eyes. What's wrong is that I've finally opened my eyes, Mr. Clean. I am no longer under pressure to provide. I have liberated myself. As she left the bank, the phone in her purse vibrated. Brendan, then Tiffany. Ellie turned the phone off. For the first time in years, her money was entirely hers. She no longer had a financial obligation to people who saw her as a resource rather than a person. Ellie had turned her phone off when she left Chase Bank, feeling her money was entirely her own for the first time in years. But she knew this peace was only temporary. She stopped at a Starbucks drive-thru for a venti latte and turned her phone back on. She was preparing for the first battle of words. Almost immediately, an unknown number from New York called. Ellie picked up her tone sharp. Eleanor Vance speaking. Mommy, Ellie, it's me. Tiffany's voice was filled with desperation so loud it cut through the street noise. We're in a total mess. Mom, what is happening? I just checked the account and this month's rent hasn't been transferred. The landlord is pressuring us. He said if we don't pay the $500 by the end of the week, he'll start eviction proceedings. We'll have nowhere to go. Brendan is yelling all over the apartment. Ellie, leaning against her Lexus SUV, took a sip of latte. The mild bitterness melted gently, contrasting with the bitterness raging inside her. Oh, Tiffany, she said, drawing out the syllables, her voice icy. Did you really think I forgot? After paying your rent 60 times in a row, did you think the 61st time was a lapse of elderly memory? Mom, I don't understand. You never forget. Tiffany's voice started to shift into panic, losing all its usual charm. I relied on you. You always take care of everything. You know we can't afford that amount without you. Brendan's salary is only enough for the other small expenses. And why should I do that? Ellie asked directly. Why does the financial responsibility of 2 grown adults fall on the shoulders of a retired widow? Because we're your family. You're our biggest support. You always said you were my second mother. You promised. Promised? Ellie scoffed a dry sound. What did I promise? Did I promise to be a lifelong bank for you? Did I promise to sacrifice $238, $500 of my retirement money so you could enjoy the Upper West Side life while I lived in this old house? Did I promise to pay for a $3,500 silk wedding dress that you called tuition money?" Tiffany started crying hysterically. "Mommy, Ellie, please don't do this. This is ruin. Are you going to let your only son, be evicted? Think about the Vance family honor." Ellie almost softened. Her motherly instinct screamed, but she immediately recalled the image of Tiffany's cold smile only invited the people who were truly special. "Tiffany," she said with a determined, cold voice, "I warned you. I only help the people who are truly special, and clearly I'm not one of them. Now figure it out yourselves. This is the last time I will discuss this with you. I'm busy booking a trip to Alaska." She hung up her palm, clenched so tight her fingernails dug into her skin. The release came with a tremor. Right after Tiffany's call, the phone rang again. It was Brendan. This time it wasn't pleading, but sheer wild anger. "Mom, are you crazy? Where do you want Tiffany and me to live? You know we don't have the cash. You can't do this." Ellie took a deep breath. She decided to confront him. "Brendan," she said, "you are 35 years old, have an NYU degree, and a six-figure salary. You've received $238 and $500 from me. You secretly got married without inviting me. Now you're asking me why I won't pay your rent. That's between me and Tiffany. It has nothing to do with finances. You always said you'd take care of me. You have a responsibility to me." "My responsibility ended when you turned 18, Brendan. I gave you over a decade of grace. I lived on frozen dinners so you could eat steak. I wore the same old coat so you could buy Brooks Brothers suits. You're emotionally blackmailing me. You're punishing me for a small mistake." "A small mistake?" Ellie nearly shouted. "Brendan, you've deceived me, exploited me, and tried to destroy my dignity. You looked straight into my eyes while your wife said I wasn't special enough. I am defending myself, not punishing you. That $238, $500 is my retirement money. I'm keeping it." "Mom, I'm sorry. I'm sorry about the wedding. I'm sorry for what Tiffany said. But you can't destroy my life just because of a lie. I'll pay you back. I promise." "No, you won't pay it back, Brendan. If you could afford to pay it back, you wouldn't have needed me to pay your rent for 5 years. You made your choice, and now I'm making mine." "You'll regret this," Brendan roared through the phone, desperation turning into a threat. "You'll pay the price when you get old and have no one to take care of you." Ellie hung up, turned the phone off again, feeling her hands shake. This threat, the threat of loneliness and old age, was the most painful blow. After the shock, Ellie's anger turned into strategic preparation. She had to turn her 500-square-foot house into an impenetrable fortress. That afternoon, Ellie drove to a large Home Depot a few miles away, a store she used to frequent to buy repair materials for Brendan's apartment. This time, everything was for her. She went to the lock and security counter. She spoke to the salesman named Sam. "Sam, I need to replace all the locks in the house front door, back door, and basement door. I want the best smart lock, the Schlaga Smart Lock Level 6. The kind that can't be physically keyed, the kind that only uses a one-time code and can be completely controlled by a phone app. I want the kind with an anti-tamper alarm." She also bought a comprehensive Ring X Pro surveillance system, including a smart doorbell and 5 high-resolution outdoor cameras covering the entire front and backyard. "I want a system that I can view remotely, and if someone breaks in, the alert goes straight to local police. I don't want any unexpected visitors anymore." She spent a total of $3,500 USD on the system, a self-protective expense she should have made long ago. Sam, who had served her for years, looked at her with newfound respect. While the installer worked, Ellie didn't just sit still. She went into her small office, took out all the legal documents, Robert's will, the house deed, and bank records. She organized them into a new fireproof filing box. She wrote an email summarizing the events and sent it to herself, recording her feelings and actions, a legal journal. "I am acting with complete lucidity. My motivation is self-defense against systematic financial and emotional abuse." That evening, As the security system installer was finishing up, the doorbell rang. Ellie looked at the camera screen. It was Joyce Stern, the next-door neighbor. "Hello, Joyce. Do you need anything?" Joyce walked in, her face anxious. "Ellie, I'm sorry to intrude, but I have to tell you I saw Brendan drive by 3 times today, staring at your house, and he looked very angry. I heard a loud shout from your phone this afternoon. Is everything okay? Is he not causing trouble?" The genuine concern from a virtual stranger touched Ellie. "No, Joyce. Everything is not okay, but it will be. Do you have time for an iced tea? I have a story you won't believe." In the cozy kitchen, Ellie recounted everything: the secret wedding, the insult, the total $238,500 spent, and her decision to cut off all financial support. Joyce listened without interrupting. When Ellie finished, Joyce's eyes were red. "Ellie," Joyce said, "you did the right thing. I went through the same thing with my daughter, Samantha. She also declared me her AI ATM. She threatened me, emotionally blackmailed me. I cut her off too. It was the hardest thing I ever did, but it was the gateway to freedom." Joyce shared her experience. "When I cut her off, Samantha said I had Alzheimer's. She threatened to put me in a nursing home. I had to sell my Cadillac to hire a lawyer. You see, Ellie, this pain is universal for good mothers. You are not alone." Joyce was not just moral support. She was a strategic ally. She provided Ellie with the name of a lawyer specializing in elder law, Mr. Sterling, in Manhattan. "He is the fixer for family issues like this. He saved me. Call him immediately." Ellie felt a profound sense of gratitude. She realized the loneliness she once feared had been replaced by a genuine friendship. The next day, before calling Mr. Sterling, Ellie decided to engage in an act of financial self-rehabilitation. She drove to the mall at Short Hills, the most luxurious shopping center in the area, which she had avoided for years due to guilt over spending money on herself. She went straight to the Nordstrom store. She sought out the designer section. "I want a dress," she told the saleswoman. "The most beautiful silk dress, royal blue. A dress I will wear when I am free." She tried on a deep blue St. John's silk dress. It cost $1,500. She remembered Tiffany's $3,500 wedding dress. She looked in the mirror. The woman in the mirror was no longer the timid mother-in-law constantly worried about the rent. She was a strong, elegant, and resolute woman. Ellie Inner thought, $1,500. This is my money. The money Robert left me. Money I was deprived of. I don't need anyone's permission to dress beautifully. I deserve this. She bought the dress and a pair of new Jimmy Choo heels, a total of $2,800 USD. She used her card without regret. This amount was only 1 month's rent for Brendan. Then she went to a high-end salon. She requested a new, more modern haircut, a cool platinum layered bob. Hairstylist. Name Cindy. "Oh, Mrs. Vance, you haven't been here in over a year. What have you been up to? You look, lighter." Ellie. "I forgot that I deserve care too, Cindy. I was too busy being a bank for others, but not anymore. I've learned to say no. This act of self-spending was an act of asserting power. My assets will serve me, not the ungrateful." A day later, as Ellie was sitting in her living room calling to book an appointment with Mr. Sterling, her phone rang. This time it was a voicemail from Brendan. Brendan voicemail, bitter tone. "Mom, I contacted Grandpa Larson, a friend's family lawyer. He said your sudden cutoff of funds is the behavior of someone with diminished capacity. You will pay. When you get sick, when you need an arm to lean on, I won't be there. You will die alone in that big house. This isn't a threat, Mom. It's a fact." This threat hit Ellie's primal fear. She put the phone down, her hands shaking. Robert died 10 years ago. Her greatest fear was dying alone. She walked into the kitchen where she had cried so much over the years. But this time she regained her composure. She remembered Joyce's words, "Your kindness is not an insurance policy." Ellie Inner thought, "I'm already lonely. I was lonely even when Brendan was around because he only needed my money. Better to be lonely with dignity than lonely under abuse. She immediately called Joyce. Joyce, I need you. I just received a terrible threat about loneliness in old age. Joyce came right away. She took Ellie's hand. They always use that card, Ellie. It's trick number 1 in the abuser's manual. But listen, they weren't there to take care of you when you were healthy. They only want to take care of your bank account. You're buying peace with your own money. That peace is priceless. They called Mr. Sterling together, who immediately requested a temporary restraining order to prevent any threatening contact. The following days were a complete transformation. Ellie started living as if she no longer had a son but had a new life. Health and fitness. She signed up for a Pilates class at the country club. She started walking 4 miles every morning with Joyce. Intellect and hobbies. She joined Joyce's book club. She bought a new easel and paints, resuming her passion for painting that she had put aside 15 years ago. Financial organization. She opened a new bank account at TD Bank, a completely different bank, unrelated to any previous transactions. Ellie sensation. Her body ached, but her mind was clear. Every stretch was a release of psychological tension. Ellie painted a strong, abstract painting with deep blue and brilliant yellow swaths. It was the embodiment of grief and rebirth. Ellie inner thought, this is my money, my time. I won't let it become a dash between the date of my birth and the date of my death. I will live. As expected, only a week later, through Mr. Sterling, Ellie received thick legal documents. Brendan and Tiffany had filed an official lawsuit in the New Jersey Family Court petition for guardianship due to incompetence, the allegations, erratic behavior, suddenly cutting off long-term financial support, paranoia, installing excessive security systems, changing locks, lack of judgment, being influenced by strangers, referring to Joyce and Mr. Sterling. Brendan and Tiffany included a fabricated emotional statement saying they feared their mother would waste her assets on untrustworthy people. They wanted to protect her legacy. Ellie read the document unafraid. Mr. Sterling, they are using my very freedom against me. Mrs. Vance, Mr. Sterling said, now we fight on their turf, and we are ready. We have the evidence of the $238, $500, and the independent psychiatrist waiting. The next morning, Ellie drove 60 miles from New Jersey to Manhattan to the office of attorney Mr. Sterling on Madison Avenue. She parked her car and walked into the glass and steel skyscraper, a symbol of power and protection. Mr. Sterling, a calm silver-haired man with sharp eyes behind metal-rimmed glasses, placed Ellie's financial file on his walnut desk. He had meticulously reviewed the $238 and $500 USD over 5 years and the emotional blackmail messages. Mrs. Vance, he said, his voice low and firm, I've reviewed everything. This is not a typical family dispute. This is a case of elder financial abuse. This is a serious crime under state and federal law. Your children view you as an asset, not as a mother. Ellie told the judge about the failed break-in, the diminished capacity threat, and Tiffany's change in attitude. It's a good thing you installed the cameras and changed the locks, Mr. Sterling said. We'll use that footage as evidence, but we must act fast. Their next move after being cut off and failing to break in will be to file a formal lawsuit in family court, a petition for guardianship. Ellie clenched her fists. They're going to try to declare me incompetent to steal my money, aren't they? Exactly. Our strategy must be strong and multifaceted. We will do 3 things. Legal defense immediately file for a permanent restraining order based on the evidence of attempted break-in and harassment, proving competency. Demand an independent mental competency evaluation by a leading expert, ethical counterattack. Publicly expose their motive by demanding full financial discovery from Brendan and Tiffany. Ellie nodded. I agree. Let's make them regret thinking my sanity was for sale. Just as predicted, 2 days later, Ellie's doorbell rang. This time it was a county sheriff along with Mr. Larson and Brendan. They carried a preliminary court order. Scene communication via smart doorbell. Ellie over the intercom. Can I help you, officer, police officer? Good afternoon, Mrs. Vance. We have a court order allowing us to conduct a welfare check and residency status evaluation due to concerns regarding your safety and stability. We will be entering the house. Mr. Larson arrogantly. Mrs. Vance, if you refuse, it will be construed as evidence of diminished capacity. We just want to check if you're okay. Nothing to worry about if you're lucid. Ellie felt a chill run down her spine. They were using the law to force her hand. She immediately called Mr. Sterling. Ellie. Over the intercom, firm voice. Officer, please wait. I have called my attorney, Mr. Sterling. He is currently contacting the county sheriff. This court order only permits a welfare check, not a psychological evaluation or interrogation. I am being threatened. I have the right to protect my property. After a few tense minutes, another patrol car arrived. A higher-ranking officer stepped out and spoke privately with Mr. Larson. Senior officer sternly, Mr. Larson, your court order only allows a welfare check, not a psychological evaluation or search of the premises. And I have been notified by Attorney Sterling that your client is being threatened. I require you, along with your client, to leave this area immediately. Any further harassment will lead to arrest. Brendan, standing behind Mr. Larson, mumbled in despair. No way. Mom has turned into a demon. Ellie looked directly into the camera, sensing her son's eyes. She said nothing. Her silence said it all. This is the price of ingratitude. To prepare for the trial, Ellie agreed to a 4-hour mental competency evaluation with Dr. Vivian Moore, an independent forensic psychiatrist trusted by Mr. Sterling. Dr. Moore's downtown clinic was clean and serious. Dr. Moore, a woman in her 50s with tightly braided hair and scrutinizing eyes, explained the process. Oh, Dr. Moore, Mrs. Vance, please recite this sequence of numbers backward, 915724. Oh, Ellie, 427519. Oh, Dr. Moore. Very good. Please draw me a clock showing the time as 9:45. Ellie drew it accurately, including the numbers and the hands. Oh, Dr. Moore. Mrs. Vance, please explain the difference between your Roth IRA and your 401k retirement funds. Oh, Ellie. The Roth IRA is contributed with post-tax money, meaning when I withdraw it in retirement, it won't be taxed again. The 401k is tax deductible now, but it will be taxed when I withdraw it later. Both are excellent savings tools, but the tax goals differ. Oh, Dr. Moore. Mrs. Vance, how do you view your sudden decision to cut off all financial support to your son, an action that could jeopardize his housing? Do you consider it impulsive behavior? Oh, Ellie. It was a painful decision, but a rational and necessary one. My son is 35, has an NYU degree and a 6-figure salary. Continuing to financially support a healthy adult is not my responsibility. After discovering this secret wedding and the insult, I realized I was being systematically financially abused. My action was an act of financial self-defense. Oh, Dr. Moore. Have you felt depressed or experienced sleeplessness because of this betrayal? Oh, Ellie. I feel grief but not depression. I cried over the loss of the mother-son relationship I thought I had, but I sleep better than ever because I no longer wake up worrying about their rent bill. I have shed a burden. Dr. Moore smiled, closing the file. Mrs. Vance, I must say your results are superior to the average for your age group. You are not only fully competent to manage all aspects of your life, but you show remarkable clarity in protecting your assets. This lawsuit is simply a blatant attempt at extortion. With Dr. Moore's positive report, Mr. Sterling was ready to go on the offensive. He sent a motion for full financial discovery to Brendan and Tiffany, demanding they provide 5 years of bank statements, detailed pay stubs, invoices for jewelry purchases, travel, and luxury goods, documentation related to the $30,000 student loan that Ellie paid off. This was a fatal blow. Mr. Sterling's goal was to prove that Ellie's incompetence was merely a pretext, and Brendan and Tiffany's greed was the real motive. They were in their newly rented small apartment in Queens, New York, a shabby place compared to the former luxurious Upper West Side flat. Tiffany slamming the document onto the table. "No way, Mr. Larson said we could keep these things secret. If his mother sees we spent $8,000 on the Maui trip last year, she'll kill us." Brendan despairingly. "She'll see the $15,000 in credit card debt I told her was for tuition. She'll see everything. We're losing everything, Tiffany. If we disclose these things, the judge will see us as liars." Tiffany. "We have to fight. If she wins, we'll have to live in this pigeon cage forever. Call Mr. Larson. Tell him to claim the documents were lost." Brendan looked panicked, but also began to show a crack in his faith in Tiffany. He looked around the small, messy room and remembered his mother's large house in New Jersey. Emotional confession element. Brendan wrote a long text message to his mother expressing deep remorse. "Mom, I've looked back at everything. I know I made the biggest mistake of my life. I'm sorry for hurting you." However, out of cowardice and fear of Tiffany, he deleted the message before sending it a dramatic act, demonstrating that his internal struggle was still overridden by greed and his wife's influence. Joyce was not just an ally, but an excellent lobbyist. She had rallied a group of friends from her book and garden club to serve as witnesses. Ellie hosted a meeting at her house. She had bought a huge New York cheesecake and brewed coffee. Arta 62. Retired teacher. "I met Ellie at the club. She can quote Shakespeare and calculate her investment returns. No way she's losing her mind, Mrs. Vance, we will fight for you." This is for all of us, the women whose children view them as tools. Former nurse. "My son also tried to control my medication. He said I was forgetful. This is about autonomy. We will tell the judge you are the most lucid, independent woman we know." Joyce stood up. "We are not just neighbors. We are the women's covenant. We will be witnesses. We will sit in the front row of the trial. We will prove that Ellie's sanity is a threat to their wallets." This support was a powerful tonic for Ellie's soul. She realized she was not fighting alone. She was fighting for the dignity of every older woman. Trial day, county family court. Ellie wore an elegant navy blue suit, her hair perfectly styled, radiating confidence. She was accompanied by Mr. Sterling and Joyce. Judge Miller, a stern middle-aged woman, sat on the bench. The plaintiffs, Brendan and Tiffany lawyer Larson, presented Mrs. Vance's sudden cutoff of $2,500 in rent is an irresponsible act showing paranoia and incompetence. Ms. Tiffany and Mr. Brendan only wish to protect their mother's assets. Brendan testified. He looked haggard, avoided his mother's eyes, and tried to play the role of the worried son. Mr. Sterling, Mr. Vance, please confirm you received a total of $238,500 from your mother. Is that correct? Brendan head bowed yes. Mr. Sterling, and have you repaid any of that amount? Brendan, I intended to repay. Mr. Sterling, I asked how much you have repaid to date. Is the number $0 correct? Brendan, yes. Mr. Sterling presented the credit card invoice from the full discovery documents. Mr. Sterling and Mr. Vance, this credit card statement shows a $12,000 expenditure at a high-end jewelry store in Manhattan in March. Can you tell the court what you purchased? Brendan, sweating, it was been an anniversary gift for Tiffany. Mr. Sterling, a luxury gift while your rent was being paid by your mother. Would a financially competent person who can afford $12,000? Gifts need their 72-year-old mother to pay their $2,500 rent? Is this financial dependence due to inability or greed? Brendan could not answer. Mr. Sterling. And finally, would you and your wife attempting to break into your mother's house through the back door be considered reliable behavior for a potential guardian? Brendan stuttering. We were just worried. We had the old key. Mr. Sterling voice hardening. That is breaking and entering, Mr. Vance. A loving son does not break into his mother's home. Ellie Vance took the witness stand. She recounted the story in detail, focusing especially on the calculated nature of their actions, not her impulsiveness. Ellie. I want to be clear, Your Honor. I am not crazy. I am awake. Their request to control my finances is an attempt to continue abusing me. I ask the court to give me back the right to live, to be free, and to be protected. If I cannot decide who I spend my money on after honestly earning it, then my freedom is a lie. Ellie's words were not just a legal statement, they were a cry for the dignity of an exploited woman. Trial day. Ellie wore her newly purchased navy blue suit with the deep blue silk dress underneath a symbol of financial freedom. She entered the courtroom accompanied by Mr. Sterling and Joyce. Brendan and Tiffany, sitting at the opposite table, looked tired and stressed. Judge Miller, a stern middle-aged woman, walked in. She had a reputation for protecting the rights of the elderly. Lawyer Larson opened. He described Ellie as a pathetic victim, undergoing a psychological crisis that led to self-destructive behavior and cutting off ties with the only people who loved her. Your Honor, Mrs. Eleanor Vance is at a vulnerable point in her life. She has been manipulated by ill-intentioned individuals into abandoning her family responsibilities. The only purpose of her son Brendan is to protect his mother from her own impulsive, irrational decisions. Mr. Larson called Tiffany as the first witness. She had changed tactics, no longer crying excessively, but using a sad, low tone, trying to evoke the image of a rejected bride. Tiffany testifying. Mommy Ellie has always been my second mother, but she became angry and paranoid. She told me she only helps the special people and cut off contact. Her fort-like installation of a security system shows she is losing touch with reality. It was Mr. Sterling's turn to cross-examine. He went straight to the heart of the matter. Mr. Sterling, Ellie's lawyer. Ms. Schuster, can you confirm that you received a $3,500 transfer from my client, Mrs. Vance, last month to cover emergency tuition? Tiffany. Yes. Mr. Sterling. And did you use the entire amount to purchase the haute couture wedding dress you secretly wore without inviting your mother-in-law? Tiffany stammering. It was a reprioritization. We intended to pay it back later. Mr. Sterling, pay it back. The money was spent within 24 hours of the transfer. Do you call that a reprioritization or a calculated lie to misappropriate my client's money? Tiffany lowered her head. It was a mistake. Brendan was called to the witness stand. He looked haggard, avoiding his mother's gaze. Mr. Sterling. Mr. Vance, please confirm you received a total of $238,500 USD from your mother over 5 years, correct? Brendan weakly, yes. Mr. Sterling, do you find that to be a reasonable amount to support a 35-year-old man with an NYU degree? Brendan, Mom always wanted to help. It was her responsibility. Mr. Sterling, responsibility or dependency, Mr. Vance, your credit card statement provided under the discovery order shows that in the month your rent was overdue, you spent $800 on a masterclass course on contract negotiation. You spent $100 on a new golf club. Do you consider those rational financial decisions while your mother is being sued by you because of concerns for your livelihood? Brendan pauses. I need those tools to make money. Mr. Sterling, you needed a roof over your head. Mr. Vance, are you aware that your actions caused your mother to install a $3,500 security system to protect herself from her own son? Brendan. Deep breath. Then looks at his mother, his voice cracking. It's my fault. I acted out of greed. I was wrong. Mom deserves better treatment. Dramatic moment. This was the first meaningful confession. Tiffany gasped, trying to grab Brendan's hand, but he pulled away. Mr. Sterling. Thank you, Mr. Vance. Your Honor, we would like to call one more witness. This witness will clarify the true nature of the plaintiff's concern. A well-dressed middle-aged woman walked in. It was neither Joyce nor Diana, but Mrs. Davies, an estate manager specializing in elderly wills. Mr. Sterling. Mrs. Davies, can you tell the court your relationship to Mrs. Eleanor Vance? Mrs. Davies, I am a retired estate manager. I helped Robert Vance, Ellie's late husband, draft his will 12 years ago. Mr. Sterling? So you are familiar with Mrs. Vance's assets. Mrs. Davies. Yes, and I am authorized as the alternate executor of the will. After Robert's death, according to the will, Mrs. Vance received 100% of the assets and decision-making power, but there is a secret clause. The courtroom buzzed. Brendan looked pale. Mrs. Davies. Clause number 7 of the codicil stipulates if Ellie remarries or passes away before the age of 80, the assets automatically transfer to a protective trust fund and only half would go to Brendan. Sterling voice hardening. Could you state the purpose of that clause clearly, Mrs. Davies? Mrs. Davies. The purpose of the clause was to protect Ellie from being exploited by people who only wanted to marry her for money or to ensure she was cared for if she passed away too soon. It was set up to ensure Eleanor Vance remained in control of her finances until she turned 80. The shocking truth. Brendan and Tiffany's help turned out to be an action designed to circumvent this protective clause, attempting to gain control of the trust before Ellie reached the safe age. Tiffany jumped up, shouting, "No way, Mr. Larson, we didn't know about that clause." Judge Miller banging gavel. "Miss Schuster, order." Mr. Larson, why did your clients never mention this clause in discovery? Mr. Larson, stuttering, we did not have access to the original will. Mr. Sterling. Your Honor, the evidence suggests that the plaintiff's concern is not about Ellie's diminished capacity, but about delayed asset ownership and this protective clause. Their attempt to declare Ellie incompetent is precisely to break that clause, gaining control of the trust prematurely. Ellie Vance was called to the stand one last time. She looked at Brendan. Ellie. Son, you wasted $238 and $500 of my money. But now you've wasted your honor. You sued me, declaring me incompetent just because you were afraid I would live longer than your father's clause. Your father protected me from my own son. Mr. Sterling. Mrs. Vance, after everything that has happened, do you still believe you are capable of managing your assets? Ellie clear. Strong voice. I am not only capable, Mr. Sterling, I am the only one capable. The evidence is clear. My decision to cut off the money was the most rational act I have made in 10 years. I asked the court to declare me fully competent and protect me from these predators. Judge Miller requested 30 minutes for deliberation. The courtroom was immersed in tension. When the judge returned, she looked directly at Brendan and Tiffany. Judge Miller solemnly. After reviewing the evidence, especially Dr. Moore's testimony regarding Mrs. Vance's cognitive capacity and the evidence of the secret will clause, the court concludes, the plaintiff's actions constitute deliberate legal and financial abuse. The court not only totally denies the petition for guardianship, but also issues a preliminary ruling that Brendan Vance and Tiffany Schuster acted in bad faith. Judge Miller. Mrs. Eleanor Vance is fully financially and mentally competent. The permanent restraining order is enforced immediately. The plaintiffs must bear all the defendant's legal costs, including Mr. Sterling's $50,000 attorney fees. Brendan collapsed onto the table, not from regret for the money, but for the humiliation and the exposure of his own betrayal. Tiffany glared angrily at Brendan, realizing her inheritance plan had crumbled. Ellie looked at her son one last time. There were no more tears, only pity. She had won her freedom and her dignity. Ellie and Mr. Sterling left the courthouse. The legal victory brought no euphoria, but a cold sense of relief, accompanied by the exhaustion of months of fighting. A few days later, everything began to unfold, according to Judge Miller's ruling. News from New York reported that Brendan and Tiffany had been evicted from the Upper West Side apartment. Without Ellie's support, they could not afford the $500 rent. Mr. Sterling handed Ellie an envelope. Inside was a check for $50,000 USD. Ellie. What is this, Mr. Sterling? Mr. Sterling. That is my legal fee, Mrs. Vance. I have been paid. However, I negotiated with Brendan's lawyer. They sold the BMW that you helped finance to pay me. They currently have no major assets other than what they earn themselves. Ellie looked at the check. This money should have been Brendan's savings. It was the physical price for his ingratitude. She put the check in her safe, feeling no regret. A week later, Ellie received a package from Tiffany's lawyer. Inside were the divorce papers between Tiffany and Brendan. Ellie. Reading the documents, inner thought. The premarital contract destroyed this marriage. Tiffany didn't marry for Brendan. She married for her inheritance. When Robert's will was protected and the money was cut off, there was no reason to stay. This breakup, though cruel, was another confirmation of Ellie's clear-sightedness. A few weeks later, after the restraining order was enforced and the shock of the divorce subsided, Ellie received a thick, handwritten envelope. It wasn't from a lawyer, but from Brendan. He had sent it from an address in Queens, the area he once considered a slum, where he and Tiffany had moved before the divorce. Ellie opened the letter, her hands trembling. This time it wasn't a threat, but a painful outpouring of the heart. Dearest Mom, I know you won't read this, or you'll think it's another one of my tricks. I'm not writing this to ask for money or forgiveness. I am writing this because I owe you the truth. In the courtroom, when you read that, will clause out loud, I understood everything. Dad protected you from me. He foresaw how contemptible a predator I would become, and he built that wall of protection for you. I apologize for becoming a terrible man. I apologize for letting Tiffany manipulate me. I apologize for viewing you as a bottomless ATM, not as the person who sacrificed her youth to raise me alone. I apologize for saying you weren't special. You are the only truly special person in my life. I've lost everything, the apartment, the car, the marriage, which I know is just a business to contract for Tiffany. I have to work 2 jobs to pay the rent for this small room. And you know what? I feel more free than ever. I know I don't deserve reconciliation. I just want you to know I take the blame. That lawsuit was the worst thing I've ever done. I wanted to steal your dignity and freedom. Mom, please forgive yourself for raising a failure of a son like me. I will stand on my own 2 feet. I will earn enough money to buy back that BMW from Tiffany, though I know she won't make it easy. I will live a life that makes you and Dad proud. Always loving you, Brendan. Ellie read the letter. Tears streaming down, but they were tears of healing. This confession, though late, released her from the greatest burden. She was not a failed mother. Brendan had accepted his fault. She had given him the tool to stand up, even if it was a painful slap. Ellie decided to sell the 3,500 square foot colonial house in New Jersey. This house, once home to her and Robert, was now too large and too full of painful memories and unrequited sacrifices. Ellie walked through the living room where she received the call of betrayal, the kitchen where she calculated the $238 and $500. She saw the protective wall with the $500 security system. She was no longer sad. She sold the house for $950,000. After paying off the mortgage and remaining legal costs, she was left with a substantial sum. Charity fund. She established a charitable fund called the Eleanor Vance Autonomy Fund, dedicated to providing legal and psychological support to the elderly suffering from family financial abuse. She donated $100,000 USD, a practical act turning her pain into strength for others. Investment. She entrusted $50,000 to Mr. Sterling to manage a secure investment portfolio. Ellie. To Mr. Sterling. I want to live safely and comfortably, Mr. Sterling. I've learned that money can't buy love, but it can buy peace. Ellie bought a small, cozy penthouse apartment overlooking the ocean in Miami, Florida. The new apartment was only 1,500 square feet, but it was filled with sunlight and sea breeze. Beside her was Joyce, who had sold her house in New Jersey and moved into a nearby condo. They had created a new women's covenant by the beach. Ellie hosted a small housewarming party. She wore the deep blue silk dress, her platinum hair flowing. Ellie, raising a glass emotionally, I want to thank Joyce for teaching me that loneliness is not the worst thing. The worst thing is being abused in the presence of those you love. Joyce, smiling. You freed yourself, Ellie. We no longer have to worry about Upper West Side rent. We worry about whether to have a margarita or a mojito. Eleanor Vance, 72 years old, sat on her balcony gazing out at the deep blue Atlantic. She was sipping the expensive champagne she had bought for herself. Not bought to beg for love, but to celebrate freedom. She looked at her wedding ring. She had forgiven Brendan not to bring him back, but to free herself from resentment, guilt. She understood that her love had been sick, and now it was healed. Ellie in her thought, your father was right, Brendan. He protected me. And finally you found your own path. You are no longer the greedy grown child, and I am no longer that ATM. Ellie. To Joyce, raising her glass. True love is never priced, and freedom is never too expensive to buy back.